Greetings! Welcome back to Couch Critic with me, Dennis P. And we're going to be doing something a little different for this episode of Couch Critic. Of course, I will be joined by GNA TV's Jem, my boy Jem from GNA TV. But we're going to be looking at the Chelsea managers, both past and present, the greats essentially, and comparing and contrasting their styles, and of course grading them on their overall success at Chelsea. But before I get into all that, we do have a sponsor for the show. I want you to know they go by the name of Major League Socks. And fellas, if you ever want to walk in the footsteps of greatness, you know what to do. Hit them up. The link will be in the description.
Yes. Greetings all. Welcome back to another episode of Couch Critic. And as promised, I am joined by my boy Jem. What's going on, King?
Not bad, man. Thank you for having me again. I'm enjoying these shows, you know. I really am. And I'm glad that the football's back as well. The international's now gone for 4 months. And yeah, looking forward to it.
Yeah, you said it best, man. I'm not going to lie. I'm actually really glad that football's back, the real football. I did enjoy the international break this time just because my boys from Canada were able to do what they were able to do, qualify for that World Cup. I think it's not confirmed yet, but it's looking very much likely that we're going to get that World Cup qualification. First time since 1986. So there's lots to celebrate there on our part. So I'm happy about that. But like I said, also very happy to get back to regular football. The Chelsea, it looks like we got like a healthy squad again. And if I'm not mistaken, you did call it. I guess Werner is actually back in practice as well. He's back in training. So we might see him in the next 2-3 matches, which is great. You know, the only guys that we have out right now is Kovacic, and if I'm not mistaken, is there one more? I'm not sure. I think Kovacic is the only one.
I think there's one more.
Yeah, I can't remember who it is though.
That's got out of my head.
Yeah,
it is as well.
it's probably Saul Niguez because nobody cares. But
yeah, that's true.
Yeah. So we're going to get into this now, folks. We are, as promised, we are going to be looking at Chelsea managers, past, present, and evaluating their greatness as managers. We do have 4 on the docket today. We're going to start with Jose Mourinho. Then we're going to look at Carlo Ancelotti's reign. And we're going to go into Antonio Conte, who is now a stud. And then, we're going to get into our current manager, which is Thomas Tuchel, and basically just look at, compare and contrast their styles, and get into what makes them so special, if they were, and what makes them difficult to work with. But before we get into all that, we do have to big up some people in the chat here.
Yeah.
Big up the football style. What's up, my friend? We got, of course. We got Kasim, Mo Kasim from the Blue Lounge. Greetings, my friend. Greetings. I'm probably gonna say this wrong. Is this D-Stretch 81?
Yeah,
D-Stretch 81. Big up, my friend.
Big
up, my friend. Yeah. And we got my man Chelsea Perspective, Coachella. And always a good guy, always good and sharing and whatnot. We got my man CFC Steven in the house. That guy, he's always up and about, man. I tell you what, man. So big up to all you guys, and hopefully we can get some more joys. Please spread the word, guys. Like and subscribe. If you're on the socials, on the Twitters, please share and let's get some more people in here. But without further ado, I think we're going to get into Jose Mourinho. I think with Jose, there is definitely a tale of two cities, right? It's just like you got his first reign, which was pretty much flawless, where he came in and basically galvanized the squad, brought in a winning mentality, fostered in a winning mentality, got Chelsea the double, got Chelsea a few more cups, and basically just got us up and running as far as a club to be reckoned with in Europe. And he was the kind of guy that divides opinion, not just because he is controversial in how he speaks to people and whatnot, but also just because in his first reign, he built us up to this great thing, and we were, flying high. And then when he came back in 2015 and won again, he kind of left a sour taste in our mouths with the 10th place finish, where he got sacked halfway through. But I mean, when we look at Jose, we have to definitely look at his tactics. And I mean, this is always the hallmark of this show. We always try to get into the tactics first. And for me, I thought that Jose's style was very much it changed over the years, but I think that first run, the doubles, the back-to-back championships, I think he was more of a counter-attacking, slow build-up, direct football. Try and smash and grab, very physical football. We used our midfield, we used the size and physicality of our midfield to great effects and whatnot. And it was a style of football that, once we got up 1-0, 2-0, the game was over. There was no way that team was going to concede. And as we all know, that team actually holds the record for fewest conceded goals in the Premier League, under threat this season. But it's going to take some doing to unseat that 2004-2005 team from what they achieved under Jose. I think that 4-3-3 was Jose's hallmark. He also often played diamond as well, with Lampard playing as a number 10 oftentimes. But for the most part, we did see a 4-3-3. And what are your thoughts when you saw that, Jem?
I always remember when he first came to Chelsea, he obviously come off the back of winning the Champions League with Porto. There was a lot of talks around a manager that was very young, had question marks because of he's still being very young, but the question marks were, what can he do in the Premier League? And obviously, prior to that, being at Porto in the Portuguese league, there wasn't much talk about how well he actually managed them. When you look at what he did before he came over, we took Paulo Ferreira from there. We took Ricardo Carvalho from there. There were some players that followed him as he came to Chelsea. He came to Chelsea, and the thing that, and I always remember because John Terry and Frank Lampard used to talk about it. This is obviously later after when you used to find out the ins and outs of how it is being around someone like Jose. And the first thing they'd always say to you is that he was actually quite calm on the training ground. He wasn't someone that was very in your face. But if you crossed the line with him, if you decided to take things in your own hand, then you would get the fire. And you've seen it in a number of times in his character that if he doesn't like something, or he thinks you're disrespecting him, or if he feels like you're not following suit into a certain way, he can be very on you, And the one thing that I would say about the team that he had, that when we were playing the 4-3-3, especially in the 04, the 04, when we first won it in 2004, is that we didn't actually have great players. We didn't have world-class players in that team. We had a squad that was, in many ways, good, decent. We bought Lampard. I know Lampard was just before he came, but Lampard that came in from West Ham, carrying a bit of weight. Everyone thought he was a bit of a reject, etc., etc. It comes to Chelsea. Carvalho and Paulo Ferreira, like we mentioned, were two people that, that just won the Champions League. So it was interesting to see how they were doing. Then you had John Terry, who had just, aspired from the ranks of people like Desai and learned and been in the team since he was a baby all the way through. And he what he did was he built a spine. That's what I remember mainly with Jose Mourinho. He always loved to have a spine, and the spine, like you said, was always physical. Leaders, people that were able to do a lot of that on the pitch, but also be the people to rely upon. And it went from Peter Cech, who we forget was unbelievable when he first came. And even before he got his head injury, it was no different. It was just good. Like, it doesn't matter with or without the head injury, Peter Cech was immense. John Terry, Frank Lampard, who had the great first season under Jose Mourinho, actually winning us the Premier League against Bolton, scoring them 2 goals. And then Didier Drogba, funny enough, was one of the ones that was getting pushed out the door at the time, if you remember. Everyone was saying he's useless, he's not good enough. We was using Idiger Johnson, if you remember, up front as well with Mateo Kesman. You remember Kesman that used to play as well? So,
of course.
He didn't have, what I'm trying to get is he didn't have the greatest squad to go and win. People said, yeah, but Chelsea spent money. They did, but they weren't like world-class players. He just used a system that worked at Porto and got them to understand it, and it works. We played well. We just played well under him.
Yeah, I think that something to note with that. I think world class comes with longevity, right? Like, you can't really define world class in a season for me. So while you can say that they weren't world class then, you can tell that the talent was there. And the thing that we can probably move into the next segment, which is man management. And I think Jose was exceptional as a man manager, just because he instilled the belief in these
Yeah,
players that they're bigger than they were. You know what I mean? Like the likes of Frank Lampard calling him the best midfielder in the world. You know, always making sure that Drogba knew that he was nobody can, you know, for lack of a better term, fuck with him. You know, when he's on the pitch, you know, he's the biggest bully on the pitch. You know, giving John Terry the reassurance that like
yeah,
he's his captain, leader, and legend and whatnot. So all of this just adds to the mystique of Jose Mourinho, his ability to make the squad feel like it was us versus them the whole time. The underdog role was something he really like flourished in. You know, the ability to, you know, take a situation like you know, whatever, the Champions League, and say, and just instill this confidence in the squad that, you know, everything is going to be okay because we all believe in each other, and here's our game plan, just go out and execute it. You know, it's infallible,
the
and
one,
if you follow
yeah,
what I do, you're going to succeed. And just to have guys just buy into that philosophy, buy into his methodology. Yeah, go ahead,
yeah.
man.
It wasn't just even for me. You're right. You're bang on with what you're saying. But you know what else it was with him as well, and it wasn't even just on the pitch. It was the way he carried himself in press conferences. Even when he got himself in a bit of what's redneck like, man. Even when he got himself in a bit of a pickle, or to say there was pressure on the players, he would always revert the pressure from the players. He was so good at protecting the players in front of the press. It was always, what is it to talk about? You know, put it on me, sort of thing. And I get why he did that. When you think about the players that were playing under him, that were, like I said to you, obviously they weren't world class at that point, but he could see the potential. He already called Frank Lampard to be one of the Premier League's greatest a long time ago. He called it a long time ago. And even when he left, he was saying how good of a professional, individual he was going into games and stuff. And
Mhm.
he was so good at protecting his players, and by doing that, it allowed them to maybe feel like they didn't have pressure because they had a manager that was, in a way, cotton wooling them, but just protecting them from what was going on outside, especially when there were hard times. And trust me, there was very hard times under
Yeah.
Mourinho. But his success speaks for himself. You know, winning what? He won 3 Premier League titles at Chelsea. He won, I think he won an FA Cup in 06-07. He also won the English League Cup 3 times with Chelsea as well. And I think he's even won a Community Shield, if I'm right. I can't remember, but he's won a lot. He's won a lot. Goes to say,
Yeah, and like I think that before we go too far, yeah, my mic's Fox redneck. I think it's my headphones. But here comes my cat to say hello. She always wants to jump in. But before we go too far, I wanted to let you guys know that you guys can also grade as well. We're gonna go along and grade each manager and leave that in the chat as well. Let us know what you think. I think before we go too far, I wanted to say tactically, I think Jose was probably about an 8 out of 10. As much as I wasn't a big fan of the football on display all the time, I really do think that tactically it was winning football. Like you couldn't really dispute what the results were. So tactically, and just the ability to get his team to buy in and everyone be in song together, I think that you have to give him his credit for that. And also the fact that he recognizes what he wants to play and finds the players to play it. So, you know, that's something that I respect about him. So I gave him an 8 tactically, and as a man manager, I mean, it's weird because the first spell I think is his best spell as a man manager, just because we were somewhat looked as underdogs, the new kids on the block in some ways, and I feel like he flourishes in that role. When you have him as the arrogant, front running manager, the guy that kind of you expect greatness from. I think that he falters there as far as a man manager goes. I think that he kind of loses he loses
he's
the
always been.
dressing room and doesn't.
Yeah,
Yeah, he doesn't necessarily have the same sort of appeal, right? Like, where he can't galvanize the squad. So as far as
yeah.
like a man manager goes, I would probably give him. It's probably tough, but I'm going to say a 7.5. But what do you think, anyhow?
He's not definitely not a longevity manager. That in
Hmm.
itself wasn't good, but at the same time, I don't think him being a longevity manager actually affects his status, because he obviously had different ambitions to go across Europe and win in every different league that he could possible. He done it in Italy, he done it in Spain, done it in England. Like he's been around the block, and he's been successful. You can't knock how much success this guy's got, and what he's done and how he's done it. But I agree. I think his man management was very. As much as I did love him and he was great at Chelsea, there was many times where as good as he was protecting the players and diverting and having arguments with managers and bullying Arsene Wenger in press conferences, he could, sometimes be a bit too much in his arrogance, especially after games. If we were to lose a game, he would come across. He could have, in my eyes, been a bit better in the way that he was explaining or trying to get things. He could be very arrogant and what's the word? Like, don't really give a crap. That makes sense in what people were saying. That wasn't always the best way of dealing with things, is what I'm trying to get at. With his players, management wise, I think probably we could sit here and say that he was probably good with most of them. He might have fell out with the odd one here and there, but I don't know what manager don't. They all do. Do you know what I mean? But at the end of the day, I think his management with the players was not to question. Sometimes I think it was more of the way he carried more of his personality and the way he was. Sometimes didn't help or appeal or help us in certain situations, especially in front of the media, I would say. So I don't know. I agree with you anyway. I'd say management was probably, for me, would probably be a 7 or 8 out of 10. I mean, tactical wise, I agree. Again, it's a bit of a mixed one. I mean, if you're talking about at the beginning, I would say 9 out of 10. Do you know what I mean? But then when he came back, he won it again. And then it kind of went a little bit. We kind of there was no other. It got a bit predictable and boring, and there was no real, answer to his methods in many ways. It sort of got outdated, if that makes sense, as it went on. Like you saw with Spurs, it seems like he sort of just got a bit outdated. So I think overall, tactically, I'd probably give him a 6.5, to be honest.
Rough. Okay, you're hearing it here, guys. Jem, 6.5 for his tactical deployment. The man that went, what did he do? He went almost undefeated season. That one loss, I guess it was with Man City, set the record for fewest goals conceded. I think he had a record at the time for most points in the Prem, and went on a run of undefeated wins at home. Jem's still saying, "Yo, man, it's a 6.5." We got somebody
7. We'll give him a 7. We'll give him a 7. That was a bit out of order, wasn't it? That was a bit out of order for me to say that. Yeah,
we got Boogeyman saying a 4.5 on man management. Ooh, rough. I mean, it's a tough one because, I think that he was so good at getting, to inspiring his team, right? And you hear about this stuff all the time. Jose was he was great for a young squad learning how to win. He's great for them, but again, I agree. He kind of he falls out with squads all the time just because, his message and his method doesn't always, come across year after year after year. So yeah, mixed reviews there. Okay, so his successes though, because he was obviously a very successful winner. He's won 3 Premier League titles. He won the League Cup 3 times, if you count that, and won the FA Cup, and he also won, I think, a Community Shield. The only thing that's really missing from his trophy cabinet was the big one, and
Champions League.
You could argue, you could argue that he got robbed, against Liverpool. Let's not speak on it too tough, but that probably would have been the year that we would have done it. Let's be honest. But you can't argue the fact that this guy won back-to-back Premier League titles, which is not easy to do, and then came back again in 2015 and then won it again. So he's obviously he is the most decorated Chelsea manager, the most successful. And in terms of his accolades, he's probably second to none. So
he fell out with the board, didn't he, Couch? And that was the issue. They didn't in theory back him at the time. Maybe when we should have maybe given him the player he wanted and stuff. And the problem with him, as soon as you do that, it's his character. He will just switch off quickly and look for the next thing to go on to. And I just wish that he did stay at Chelsea. I do, especially in the early areas when we won it the first time with him. I think he could have, with this team, we could have dominated year after year after year with him there. If we allowed him to improve in areas, bring the players that he wanted, because he could attract players. We forget he can, just his name attracted players, especially after winning the Champions League and then winning the Premier League. He could do that in his own. And I don't know. It is what it is, isn't it? But it was his choice, and the Chelsea board believed that he wasn't the one for the time. And as you know, we had, how many? 13, 14 managers since then with him mixed in it. So it's what it is.
Yeah. As far as successes go, I think you have to give him at least a 9, with the only thing that's missing being the Champions League. And of course, he went to 2 semifinals in the Champions League as well. So that one against
Yeah.
PSG, or was it PSG? No, it was Atletico Madrid, which everyone thought we were going to the final, and unfortunately didn't. In terms of managing and reaching expectations, I think Jose has done a good job of that as well. I think that when you look at where he came from, especially coming from the Porto League, of course we threw a lot of money at him, but we didn't really go crazy in terms of spend every year, and he delivered some like seminal moments for this Chelsea this Chelsea club. So I think that, and then coming back again when we were pretty much, close it down again after we won the Champions League, then get knocked out of the Europa League, or knocked down to the Europa League, then he coming back after Benitez. That was the beginning of another run for Chelsea, as far as I'm concerned, and he kind of was there to steer the ship again, and again won another title, won another cup. I think he's done a really good job at managing the expectations that the club have, because we're basically built on winning. We need to win, and he's done a lot of that. So again, I would probably give him an 8 in terms of managing and reaching expectations, just based on the fact that we are built on winning, and he's done a lot of that. Yeah.
No, I agree. I couldn't really add more to that, other than that he was kind of robbed in terms of the Champions League, but everything else he especially in our league he done, didn't he, in theory? So could have done more there. It was just the European success that maybe stops him from getting a 10 out of 10. But he just listen, he was robbed. The Liverpool game, I don't want to talk too much about it, but that was definitely not a goal. That was definitely not a goal. I think the second time we come back, we went through against PSG, and then we got knocked out by. I can't remember who we got knocked out after that. I think it was Liverpool, wasn't it? I can't even remember.
It was Atletico Madrid, I believe. Atletico Madrid.
Atletico, that's it. Yeah. Oh yeah.
He played 7 defenders. We were up 1-0 in the first game,
and
then he played 8 defenders in the return match
work.
At home, and it just did not work.
It didn't work. He got his tactics, and that's where I'd say he got his tactics wrong in certain areas, positions, and things. But yeah, no, definitely, I agree.
Okay, well, let's move on. What did you think of him as far as likability? Again, it's just like a tale of two cities for me, because I thought that in the first spell, he was Chelsea. He helped define what it meant to be Chelsea at that time, during that era. And then seemed like 2015, 2016, after winning the title, he kind of just soured his relationship again. And, not just with, the likes of other teams, but also within the ranks of the club. Players, he had fallings out. You heard the row about him not really getting along with a bunch of players. He coming out and saying before he got sacked that the players have betrayed his work and stuff like that. And that's not something that you would normally associate with Jose Mourinho, just losing the dressing room like that and the team falling 10th. So I think his likability took a hit that second go around, and I'd probably give him a 6, maybe, just because I'm still looking at what happened the first run. Maybe 6 is a little harsh, but yeah, 6 for me.
Well, he won the league, didn't he? But other than that, I don't know. I get what you mean. He wasn't as how he was with the first group of squad, like when we had it originally. He wasn't the same when he came back. He done what he needed to do, and he won us the league. And let's not forget, he really was on Eden Hazard, if you remember that season, because he was very he's world class. He could be on the same level as Messi and Ronaldo. But I always remember a moment with Eden Hazard where, with Jose Mourinho, he liked his players to work hard, meaning that if you're very good going forward, you've got to also be able to defend. And Hazard didn't do it. And I remember him dropping Hazard for that and making him literally learn to, more like a punishment, if more than anything, but a punishment to say, look, you may be our best player, but when I say to you, you've got to cover your left back at the time, then you need to do that. And we were getting caught so many times because Hazard was just walking a lot of times, and he switched it, and it kind of got into Hazard a bit. I wouldn't say he'd done it at any real great, it's not like he got any much better than it, but it was just that he started getting back, you know what I mean, and defending when he was given the opportunity later on by Mourinho. And that's the kind of thing with Mourinho. If he sees a weakness and you speak, and I'm assuming they've spoke about it, if you don't listen to him, he will drop you. It doesn't matter if you're Eden Hazard or whoever you are. So sometimes I think his man management then wasn't as great with the players, but at the same time I get why he made certain decisions. But yeah, I agree. But I wouldn't give him a 6. I'd probably give him a 7, probably on when he was back, just because he won the league as well.
Yeah, that's probably fair. I mean, I'm not going to deny it. Like the first run was just such an emotional high that it's hard to see. Even though he still won the league this week, it's hard to give him like a non-passing grade just based on the fact that we won 3 titles with him. But I mean, as far as likability goes, I still think that he fell out with the fans, he fell out with the club, he fell out with the players. So that's got to be a factor. But we should move on. Let's touch on another title-winning manager that we had at the ranks, by the name of Carlo Ancelotti, who by most Chelsea fans loved him as a manager. They thought that he was, just a likable personality, a guy that like got us scoring goals in boatloads, and played the type of football that was deserving of a big club, like scoring 8s, 7s all the time. It was a type of football that we wanted to see as a Chelsea supporter, but it wasn't always easy on the eyes. I must say that. Like as much as we were scoring those 7s and 8s, it wasn't like elegant looking football. It was very robust, powerful, win the ball, knock it down, shoot and goal. It wasn't very elegant. Not that I want that in terms of as a football style, but when you're thinking of like a team that scores 6, 7, 8 goals, you think that it would be a little bit more appealing on the eyes and whatnot. It just wasn't. But tactically, he often played again the 4-3-3, hallmark of a lot of teams that year during that era, but also played the 4-4-2 diamond a lot of the times as well, and tried to use that to appease the likes of Torres, Anelka, and Drogba from time to time. Mixed views there, obviously, but as a man manager, a tactical guy, like he was great at getting us scoring goals, and you'd see guys like even like Ashley Cole have like a career year underneath Carlo, just because he was given the freedom to maraud up that left flank and get into the box. One of the first real inklings of fullbacks getting forward was me seeing Ashley Cole, in the box, marauding forward and scoring goals and like, being a real presence there as well. And I guess that was ultimately because we played with that 4-4-2 diamond and we needed width as well. So he used the fullbacks. I can't remember I guess the right back was a little bit mixed up that year because we had Belletti, we had Ivanovic play there, we had Bosingwa as well. I think Bosingwa was injured for most of that season. So it was kind of like a mixed bag as far as right backs go, but definitely down the left, you can count on Ashley Cole to overlap, get into the dangerous area and score goals. So yeah, I thought he was a great manager. Tactically, the team always looked prepared, but he didn't really have to do a lot because we had such a strong squad. It just seems like all he had to do is just assemble the squad, put them on the pitch, and they knew what to do. It was a strong veteran team. So as much as I thought that he oiled the machine and got us playing really, really good football, I don't know if he was if it wasn't just down to the fact that we had already assembled a championship team, and it was just basically saying, this is how we're going to play, go out and execute. So as far as a tactician goes, I'd probably give him a 7.
He's probably the one manager that I was annoyed with in my club because we let him go, if you want my honest opinion. I disagree when you say that he had a squad, he just had to put them out there and play them. Yourself, you need to have tactics and a system for you to be successful. It doesn't matter how many good players you've got on the team. This guy was a winner. He had won countable amounts of trophies at AC Milan before he'd even came across to us. And even when he left Chelsea, you think about he went to Real Madrid. Did he go PSG as well? He
lost the league at PSG to Montpellier.
yeah, he did. But he also won it, didn't he? Because he was there for, I think, a good couple of seasons as well, wasn't he?
It's possible. I can't remember. I do remember the Montpellier, though.
But in terms of the squad at its time, I always say this, probably my favourite squad of players like to watch because you're right, we had so much talent. We had, in midfield, we had Essien, Ballack, Lampard, Makaleli, and Deco. Now I know Deco was getting on the older age of things, but this guy was class at Barcelona. Like, he was very good. You know what I mean? And we had them all. You know, we had them all. And I always remember the
I think it was
diamonds.
Mikel actually.
And Mikel.
Maka was gone, but
Not
yeah.
Maka, yeah, sorry, Mikel, that's it, yeah. Mikel was good under him as well, you know, really good performances. But when you look at that squad in terms of his man management, couldn't fault it. I don't think there was one. I don't remember him having an argument with one of his players. I don't remember him having a fallout with any of his players. If anything, I agree. I actually think he was let down in many ways. He was let down at the end of his career with Chelsea by the board, because we didn't win the Champions League. You know, he did win the league, and I think he won the FA Cup. I think it was.
Yeah, I got the double that year.
Very short stint. Yeah, he did do the double. So, you know, in terms of his man management, you can't fault him. I'd give him an 8 or even a 9, 8 to 9 out of 10. I thought he was very good with the players he had. These were big personality players as well. You know, these wasn't players that weren't well classed. These were players that were class, like top of their game. Do you know what I mean? Lampard, Michael Ballack was a machine in Germany. Do you know what I mean? Especially at Bayern Munich before he came over to Chelsea. And, you know, he also had people like Alex. Do you remember Brazilian Alex?
Of course.
We had him.
Ramirez was the only real guy that came in as far as like signings go.
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken as well. So.
And Dropper scored, if you remember, under him, Dropper scored. I think that was the season where he scored 38 goals in all competitions. So we must have been doing something right. Do you know what I mean? For us.
Oh, no doubt. Like the reason why I say like tactically, I don't know if he was like exceptional is because we've already seen that Chelsea squad had already been through manager after manager after manager, success after success. We've seen them manage dressing rooms on their own. You know, under Abraham, under Scolari. You know. We saw that. That was like the advent of that, really. So that's why that was kind of where they started. You got the idea that Chelsea could win games on their own. Now, I'm not taking anything away from Carlo. I think that Carlo came in and definitely oiled that machine and made them more efficient and made them more effective going forward. But I just feel like that squad was already there. You know, like all he had to do is come in and like just cross the T's, dot the I's. You know, but having said that, you are correct as well, because that we haven't really won anything recently, because United were going on that three-peat at that point. So
yeah, free, yeah.
We hadn't won anything, and it took Carlo to come in to end that reign, right? Yeah. So that's a good point. So maybe 7 is probably not. And I still remember that game that we beat United at the Bridge where. You know,
penalty or header from Ballack, wasn't it? With the ball
yes, exactly.
I remember that. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. So I guess the only thing is like in the big games, like so when you look at the Champions League against Jose, in the round of 16, I guess it was, you know, just tactically outclassed, and you know, if I'm not mistaken, we lost that 2-1 or something like that with Eto'o scoring a brace or something like that.
He came back to the Bridge, didn't he? And absolutely. I think it was Eto'o that scored the goal as well, wasn't it?
Yeah,
if I'm right.
exactly. Broke away, got in behind John Terry. So those that's what that obviously Chelsea dominated the league that year. It was a 2-horse race with them and United, but we still didn't have, you know, that extra level of success where you wanted to have it. Of course, we won the FA. You know, it's hard to say. I'm going to give him a 7.5 just because I really do think that he done well, but. You know, the expectations were still so much higher from that club. So I'm going to say 7.5.
He
definitely did. He definitely did. 100%.
What he won and what he did, you know, winning the FA Cup, winning the double, it doesn't matter. It's a double. The FA Cup and the Premier League. There was no way in hell that our board should have let him go. And I'm never against our board. I always, even with all the other managers, I've always never been against it. But when they did that to him, I really didn't understand what you know, especially when we got rid of him, and then if I'm right, after that we brought in Avram Grant just to cover him, which was a bit out of the blue, and then obviously AVB came in at a later stage stuff. It just it didn't make no sense. He would have stayed. You know, he had the players. He could have given him the money to just get on with it. He might have even, you know, won us a Champions League, you know, in the next season or two, because he had it. He had everything in terms of experience, and he had players on the side. I thought the players were playing for him as well, and they enjoyed being around him. They even said it. He was a good manager. Good manager.
Yeah, and like as far as man management goes, like it's a good point, because like he didn't really have any major falling out with that squad. Like if anything, you know, the addition of Torres would have made it a lot more difficult to work with that particular squad and he was able to manage Drogba, Anelka, and Torres at the same time and get them time on the pitch to, varying levels of effectiveness. I still remember that Champions League game in the second season where he started Torres ahead of Drogba, and I was just like, oh, why? Like, he was not firing at all. And, like, he didn't bring Drogba. He brought him on, like, late in the second half. Drogba comes on to scores, and you just thinking to yourself, what if Drogba would have started that game? Because, he just gets up for those games, right? But anyhow, I digress. I would say his man manager is a 7.5, just based on the fact that like he didn't really ruffle any feathers. But I don't know if that dressing room needed to be managed overall. So I'm gonna say 7.5. Again, we touched on the successes. Obviously, the double was big, and just the fact that like he did that in a season where. You're coming off United winning 3 straight Premier League titles. He puts a complete end to that and gets a double. That's impressive. And that was
our only double winning manager. He wasn't our only double winning manager to that point.
Well, a true double though.
Right.
Like they don't really consider the League Cup. Like League Cup's kind of like, eh. Yeah. So
fair enough.
Yeah. But so what were as far as his successes go? Do you think that it was enough to warrant him? To be amongst the Chelsea greats, obviously a Premier League title and a FA Cup in the same season.
I don't think we'll ever know if he would have been any, I actually think he probably would have continued. He would have won more, probably more than Jose Mourinho if we would have kept him, to be honest. But I don't know. I think because of because it was a short stint for him, there was no longevity. Can I go based on the double, and it was a very good double? That for me, that would give him a 7 for me on that.
Yeah. I just wonder because it seems like that Chelsea squad, like, and I should go back because you got some performances out of guys that we never saw before. Like obviously Malouda had a season for the ages, that title winning season, and even the follow up season was actually quite good for him as well. And I remember the first 2 seasons of the Malouda, everyone was like, "Yeah, this is who we bought." Not great. And then he just kind of like flourished under Carlo Ancelotti, but like. I really do think that as far as successes goes, the expectations were so high for that club, and like obviously the holy grail was the Champions League. And to see us go out to Jose in the round of 16 and then the following year lose to United, and a lot of the decision making in those games were just not up to snuff for me. So I think that with the squad that we assembled, we could have gone further in the Champions League and probably should have. So I would say that it could have been better for me. Could have been better. So I'm going to give him a 7.5 as far as achievements go, successes, and based on the fact that we didn't really make any noise in the Champions League whatsoever.
Fair enough. I don't disagree with you on that, to be honest, mate. I think it's it's a fair shout, to be honest. Like I said, I'm just more stressed that he didn't get given more time, if that makes sense, to do more. We were in a habit of just kicking out managers at that point, wasn't it? It was like Abramovic wanted that one trophy. If you didn't give me that trophy, you were out the door. Do you know what I mean? Like winning the Premier League just wasn't enough, for certain managers. And I don't know, maybe it's just the way we were run at the time. And we did end up getting the Champions League, funny enough, through Di Matteo, and then we ended up sacking him off after anyway. So it was just a bit weird, isn't it? Like, of every manager, you're blimmin' supply. It's like a supply teacher, isn't it? Supply manager wins you the Champions League, so you just couldn't write it. So, yeah, great manager.
I just wonder, I wonder if the club were looking at that period and saying, we need to rebuild. We need to rebuild the squad. And I don't know if Carlo is the guy to rebuild it. Because... because it was, it was just then, and we still didn't even really have the funds, right? Like I think the year that Carlo came, we lost Ballack, obviously, and then we brought in Ramirez, and then the following year we brought in Torres and Luis, and to varying levels of success. I just don't know if they trusted him to do the rebuild because it seemed like a major overhaul was in the offing, and I don't know if he had the stump for it, but again, I digress. I think we should look at his likability. I don't think that anyone could dispute that he was a likable man. Like he won over the fans, he won over the supporters, he won over the club, he won over the players. And you know, maybe not to the effect where they were crying when he was let go, but you know, he was treated really poorly by the club when the end of his tenure. You know, so sacking him in the tunnel on the after the last game against Villa, I believe it was. Like that's just, you know, it's
Brutal.
really really poor, and you know, it's just not on, right? It's, yeah, to put it for, like, you know, bluntly, that's brutal, right? You know, I thought he deserved better than that, and just because he was such a likable guy, you know, everyone knows that Torres was not his buy. It was definitely a
Oh,
club buy. It was
yeah,
definitely.
yeah.
Yeah, and he ate that. He swallowed. He took that bullet for the club. He's like, no, I wanted him. You know, this is who I wanted to bring in, and you know,
Yeah.
I'm going to try and find a way to make him play. And for all those things, you know, like you'd assume that he would have gotten a better, you know, had a better fate with the club.
They
But
stamped, yeah,
alas,
for me, they stamped him in for me. That's why I was a little. That's why, like I said, I never ever get the ump with our board and their decisions because of how successful we have been in the last 20 odd years. But the way they treated him was just the way they dealt with him, the way they treated him was just not nice whatsoever. And Carlo was not sexy there. Yeah, he was a bit on the old side, wasn't he? So yeah, that's probably why. Wasn't it Jose Mourinho or an AVB, was he, or a Conte? Do you know what I mean? With their little slick suits and comebacks and that. But no, look, it is what it is at the end of the day. And since that, yes, we got rid of him early. You know, we continue to. Do you know what annoyed me about? Just quickly, I think what annoyed me mainly with. I say annoy me, but got to me a little bit in our board and the sackings of these managers, because they were all top managers that were coming across, is that we could have been more consistent in our winning if we would have kept these managers rather than sacking them off and bringing in these Avram Grants, the AVBs, and all these random prospects that we thought might be able to do something with a squad when they just wasn't ready to do. Do you know what I mean? And I just wish we'd just limited the number of sackings we did and stuck with the experienced managers that were winning things like he did. He won a double, give him another go. You know, like that's the kind of attitude I wanted our ball to have, and you know they didn't, and he ended up going, unfortunately, and he was sacked brutally, and it is what it is, isn't it? Shame.
yeah, I'm going to give him a 8.5 in terms of likability. I mean, he did kind of like rub me the wrong way the second season, just because like every press conference he'd just come out, oh, we're in a bad moment, a bad moment, a bad moment. That became like a catchphrase. You know, like week after week, Chelsea just starts playing foiling. Like, oh, it's a bad moment. It's a bad moment. Well, how are we getting out of it, man? Tell us how we're getting out of it, please. You know, what's going on here? So, yeah, I'm going to give him an 8.5. It would have been a 9 if not for the bad moment.
8.5 is fair. I agree as well. I'll shout 8.5 as well. That's no problem.
Yeah. All right. Well, there's Carlo Ancelotti. We went through a few managers after that. Obviously, Jose came back, and we talked about that. We went through AVB. We went through Di Matteo. And then we went through Jose and Benitez, and we're going to skip all of those, and we're going to get to this guy who also divides opinion amongst the fan base in terms of like style of play and whatnot. But
Definitely.
I mean, he was a winner. He's a serial winner, as he likes to call himself, and he won us another league. This is obviously Antonio Conte. What are your thoughts on him?
Like you said, he divides opinion, doesn't he? Really, in the way that he is and how he was. He was really against the ropes when you think about his first season at Chelsea. We started off okay, and then we got to November, and everything just went downhill. It just looked like they weren't playing for him, not understanding what was being asked or required. I know we're talking about the man management element of him here, and this is where I'm going with it. But you know, I just feel like he wasn't getting his point across clearly to the players, and it made me feel that the players weren't on his side. If you look at the back-to-back losses at Liverpool, 3-1, and Arsenal, I thought it was game. I thought he's going to be done. Like, there's no way in hell you go to both these grounds away and get slapped 3-1 at Chelsea at that point and stay. When you look at the history of how we treat managers, I just thought, no, he ain't going to last. And then obviously he made that tactical, amazing tactical switch, because to think of putting Victor Moses and Alonso as your wing backs and then making them like in my eyes at that point, the best wing backs in the league, let alone maybe even in Europe. When he got them firing and they understood their roles, and then they all pulled together from 1 to 11. They all pulled together and they all understood what was required, how to play, what was we looked more balanced, we looked more fluid, we could defend. People didn't know how to play this formation. It was like they were so used to. In many ways, the olden days it was yourself through the Ancelottis and to the Mourinhos, probably up to that period, it was very 4-4-2s, you know what I mean, or 4-3-3s, But this was a complete switch in everything because he went 3-4-3, and it was like, right, they've only got 3 at the back, but they're using their fullbacks, their supposed fullbacks, as wing backs, and this is where it all started. And I think teams just didn't know how to deal with it. And in terms of his man management through that first year, I would say. They, especially after that second period, it got strong. So I'd probably say a good 7.58, probably 8 out of 10 in terms of getting them on par and getting them on side, because they really did pull to what he was trying to do, especially after them 2 losses. But if you was asked me before with them 2 losses, I'd probably say a 3. Or do you know what I mean? It's so weird. It was such a up and down sort of relationship with Conte, wasn't it?
Yeah, no doubt. Man management, I would say he was. I think when I think of man management, it's about like how you communicate your philosophy and how you get it across, right? Like a part of that, and like also like how do you treat your squad players? How do you get them involved? How do you allow them to, feel a part of the squad? How do you get them to feel like they're included? And I feel like during the first season, obviously coming off finishing 10th, he had the undivided attention of that squad. The undivided attention, just because you finish 10th, you come back into the season, you're going to listen to the new manager just because you have no clout. You can't be talking anyway after finishing 10th. You're going to do it my way, and this is my way. This is how we're going to win. And I think that was a big, big factor, especially because he was such a, he was coming off of winning 5 titles in Italy. Then he went to the Euros and did well with Italy. In the Euros as well, and he had clout at that point, so it was almost to the point where the team had to listen to him. Right, his message was you have to work hard. His message was you have to train hard, and they did that from right from game 1 right through to the 38th game. Like they were working extremely hard. He trains those teams extremely hard. One of the reasons why I thought that Chelsea won the title that year is because we were the most fit squad in the Prem. Obviously, we didn't have to contend with any midweeks, but we were extremely fit. Like from every player on that pitch could run through walls, and it was mainly down to his training regimen. And that to me meant. First of all, you have to get the players to buy in. That became easier because of the fact that we finished 10th. But then secondly, you have to show them that the results are going to come through if you do this work. And, you go on a run of 13 straight wins. You can't be second guessed at that point. Like, what I mean? You can't be second guessed at that point. So he had them. He had the squad. So in terms of man management and the ability to get his message across and, have them buy into a new philosophy, a new way of playing football, and and the successes, I'd have to give him an 8 based on what we saw the first season. It's unfortunate that the second season again he after winning the title, the expectations are that we kick on and do more, we go further, we do we buy new players, bring in new players, but even in the off season that year he'd already disrupted the the environment in the dressing room just by what he did with Diego Costa, and then also, the freezing out of, I think it was Willian for a while, and like all of that led to his demise as far as I'm concerned, because no longer could his shouting and like his demonstrative nature on the sidelines, players were just tuning him out just because he's shown that he wasn't really about them as much as he was about himself. So, I'm still going to give him an 8 just because he did win the FA Cup that year, and it took a lot of man management to go from, a Diego Costa to a freaking Morata. So I'm going to give him an 8. But yeah, I still think that there's a lot left to be desired there.
Yeah, he wasn't. I always remember his second season. It was horrible for me. I just
Yeah.
everything about it was wrong, and it got to the point, and it was so obvious. It just that it's like he didn't see it. It was that we were coming up against teams, and they worked out the formation. They knew how to defend it. They knew how to counter against it. They knew how to hurt us. And that's when, and this is why I worry about him being at Tottenham as well, is that he's very stubborn in his own system, in his own way, and he thinks that this is the only way and that's it. And he's probably another reason why when we talk about Mourinho, they never last, because they'll go into a team and they'll impact the team massively in what they want, get them on side, get performances, win titles like he did at Inter Milan last season. He done the same thing there, he got them ticking and it worked. And the problem is, once you get found out, you've always got to have a plan B, right? Because if you're a great manager, you've got to know how to have a different style, a different idea, and he didn't. And he lost he went from winning things and being dominant in a league at the time that was hard, because Man City were still very good at that point as well. And into the next season, and he kind of just, it's like he didn't do anything new. He just wanted to stick to what he knew, and you could tell it just wasn't working. And he lost it. He lost the players. Like you said, he lost the players. He had fights with some individuals. Some of them were coming out in the papers saying, like, I think there was a couple of players that were even trying to report him to the board in training. Like, they wouldn't turn up to training, and then he would moan and find them, and then they would go and moan at him at the board, and everything just went up in the air. And it was just only a matter of time. And then you had that whole thing of him suing our club for a certain amount of money as well. And for me, it went downhill at that point. So I'd say a 6.5 at that end of that.
That's fair. I can definitely see that. And like, I'm being generous just due to the fact that he did win 2 cups in 2 years. But yeah, 6.5, I can definitely see that. As far as his successes go, again, like, this is kind of like mixed, because like we went from him within a season where, we didn't expect much. Let's be honest. Like, I knew he was a great manager, a guy that could, definitely get us top 4 again if all things fall our way. He did have Conte coming into the side, which is, that's an ace in the hole right there, if you ask me. Yeah. But, I didn't have high expectations for that season, and to go from 10th to 1st is just exceptional, especially in the manner that we did it as well. That 13-game winning streak, and then also, just how we just went to teams home and away and just, imposed ourselves upon them. Like, I was so impressed that first season.
Yeah.
And then the second season, as you said, like, he did fall out, but and we didn't really do well in the Champions League as we thought we would. We did have a chance to get through. I think it was Barcelona. Was it Barcelona that played that year? And we had that giveaway by Christensen, and all hell broke loose. Was that his season? That was his season, yeah.
That was that season, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and anyways, it was a tough draw anyways. Nobody's expecting us to, knock off Barcelona. We had the chance and we didn't take it. And then I think Thibaut conceded like 3 through his legs in the return fixture or something like that. But
to Messi, who hadn't scored for it against us for like ever. He never scored it, did it? You know what I mean?
So. So it was disheartening to see that we couldn't, build on the success of the first season and like, kick on in the Champions League. So, but again, coming to the end of the season where all the shit hit the fan, and like we were in disarray as a club, didn't finish top 4. He still emerges as an FA Cup winner, which, to me is still quite an achievement given the season that we had, the turmoil and the fact that we didn't get the targets that we thought we were going to get. Having said that, I don't recognize an FA Cup as a major success. Major successes to me are leagues and Champions Leagues, and he just did not do enough in that respect for me to give him anything more than a 6.5.
Yeah, no, I agree. There's not much more to say about him. I think you signed it up for pretty much with Antonio, with Conte himself. But he, like you said though, he did win an FA Cup. He did win the Premier League. He could have maybe potentially had more time at Chelsea if he was not so stubborn in his ways and just changed it and kept players inside. But MDT's right. He did lose David Luiz.
Agreed.
He lost Page. He lost Costa. He lost. I think he lost more than that, to be honest. He ended up losing them all at the end of it, and it's a shame because he
Even
had.
Hazard didn't even like him either. Like the way he
Yeah,
spoke about him after that Man City game was just like, this is
yeah,
just terrible tactics, right?
yeah. They all just fell away from him, and it was obvious in our where we finished, and obviously in our performances, and it's just a shame really that we never really got to continue any further. So 6.5 is what I say as well.
Yeah. And as far as likability goes, I think we've kind of covered that. He kind of rubbed a lot of people the wrong way within the squad. The obviously the management as well, not returning phone calls when Javi's already on a -8.
-8, can't believe.
Yeah.
Yeah, he wasn't good. He caused us a lot of problems and pain after.
Yeah, it just like not, and then he sues the club on top of that too. Probably
Yeah,
rightfully, he's owed his money, but like, you don't throw your toys out the pram. You're a little bit more professional than that, just because you don't get your targets. It's not the first time it's happened in your career. Just accept it as such and work with what you have. So, for him, his likability for me took a real dent that second season. Went from like a real solid 8 right down to a low 3, just because I hated the football and the fact that he fell out with everyone in the club and then ended up
he's
suing
like
them. It was just enough for me.
his likability hit the floor for me. To be honest, that's the one thing I would say it was not good. I think a 3. His likability went out the
Yeah,
window. It started off well, and I thought it didn't start off well actually. It went a bit not sure, and then it was really great, and then it was a shambles again. So you can only go based on the shambles elements, and yeah, for me it outweighs any. I say outweighs everything. It was good because he done a lot good at Chelsea, but it outweighed a lot of the nice images that you had in your head of him, if that makes sense, because of all of the crap we had with him off the pitch as well. So I would say a 3 for his likability.
yeah, yeah. I'd agree with that. Yeah. So Conte, probably of the four, I would have to say is probably my least favorite. Just in terms of how the taste that he left in my mouth. And the ups and downs were brilliant, but at the same time, it was just very hard to really like the football that we were playing, and then like the aggressive nature that he treated the squad with. So
Yeah.
yeah, so I don't know. This guy is actually starting to become one of my favorites. He's quickly marching up the ranks as one of the guys that I absolutely love. And no, not that guy.
I was gonna say that changed. That changed quick, man.
Do I have him here? I hope so. No, that's yeah, here we go. It's this guy. And it's for more reasons than just just the fact that he's got us playing some decent football right now. Like, he's, of the managers that we featured so far, he's the only one that has one of these. One of these Champions League trophies here. So tactically, I mean, he has proven to be brilliant to me. He's a guy that like understands his players. He came in midway through last season and quickly made an assessment as to what he had and immediately figured out what he needed to do. And it almost makes you think that the notion to get him in as a manager was like predetermined because of the way he was able to analyze what we had in the squad and then quickly get them to play football the way he envisioned it. Obviously, he switched from our 4-3-3 and a 4-3-3 that he actually played a lot at PSV and also at Dortmund. He went right to the 3-4-3 and found a lot of success. We went on an unbeaten run right from the first game against the Wolves, and I can't even remember where we took our first loss, but I know it was a consecutive match streak of maybe like 13, 14 games somewhere in and around there, and to come in mid-season and not only go on a run like that, but also change the actual philosophical setup of the squad and get those types of performances. That's the next level. So not only is he tactically communicating what he wants to do football-wise extremely well, because it's being evidenced on the pitch, but he's also come in and have revolutionized what the squad was about. So I rate him tactically very, very highly. I think it's a 9, and it could even go up if we win the league this year. Yeah.
I agree. There's nothing more you can say about this guy. If anything, he could, depending on how long he lasts at Chelsea, what he wins. If he wins a Premier League, it's going to be a lot of talks around what he's won in his 2 years. But, you know, to come in such a short space of time, when you think about where he was under Frank Lampard and the issues that we had, and I always remember the first game that he took over with Aston Villa. All right, we drew that game, but you could already see that his attention to detail was the biggest thing with him. Like he would see every little thing. He wouldn't miss anything. If there was an issue, he would deal with it. And it, to this day, for me, he still does that now. And in terms of tactically, if we're just at the moment talking on tactics, from what I've seen up to now, he's a 9.5. Like I don't think there's anyone tactically ineptly better than him. I don't think Mourinho is. I don't think Conte is. I don't think Ancelotti was. If we're talking about all of our managers up to now, he is the best tactician, like in terms of being able, because do you know what he has that's different to all of them other managers that we spoke about? He always has a plan B, C, and D. So even though we're only seeing what we think is a 3-4-3 in many ways, yeah, it could easily switch because it changes in games. You know, he's got the team so used to not being used to just that one system that he knows that he can switch it to a 3-5-2. He can switch it to a 5-3-2. He can switch it to, depending on how they want. They play transition football. They switch as they go through the game, and to be able to do that confuses the opponent because they don't know how and what you're going to do throughout the game. And I don't think that we've had a manager that's came in at Chelsea and done what he's done on the pitch in such a short space of time. I think it's hard to say too much more, but at the moment I can only go on what I've seen. But you know, if he goes on and becomes, 3, 4, 5 years down the line, he's still here and he's still doing what he's doing now, and we're successful, he's going to be by far our best manager in our history. I think he will. Yeah. But tactically, if we're talking about tactically, at the moment, can't knock him. But we will get found out eventually in the way that we play, and we will have to adapt. So.
But you've already touched on that because like he always brings a new wrinkle. Like we keep in mind we didn't really have a full preseason, and he's always bringing a new wrinkle. Like we played false 9 system. We played 2 strikers and a number 10. We played the inverted wing backs, which is a new wrinkle this year that we didn't see last year. Like all of these things are new, nuances that he's brought to the club that variate how we play football, and it's made it very difficult. Like we're basically playing football that, it seems refreshing every time we play. And like, who of a man can tell you what formation Chelsea's going to be playing, from match to match? Like nobody can call it, right? It's crazy, right? Xavi here has got him.
You don't even know what players he's going to play, let alone tactic. Yeah. You don't even know. Sometimes he just plays the most random play, and we're like, it's like we want to question it, but we can't because every time he's done it, it's worked. He gets some blame.
It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable.
I really can't work it out. But it's good.
Yeah, and then you look at like as a man manager again, like it's just levels and like how he's been able to like. And again, I think a great manager is a guy that is able to obviously get his best players, getting them to gel together, mesh together, and buy into what he's doing, but also get the sort of like periphery players, like your Kepas, your Alonsos and whatnot, and get them to buy in as well and feel a part of the squad, feel a part of the club, and not really have any disruptions. He's again done that at an exemplary level, given the time that he's got. Because like he walked into a dysfunctional dressing room, lots of players that were falling out with Lampard, as we're hearing as time goes by, like lots of people had fallings out, and he's come in and put everyone under his wing and said, okay, fine, if you perform for me, you're gonna play. And it's kind of like this meritocracy that I think is really helped the squad and helped like galvanize this team over this last 9 months or so. And it's you would think that it's been more than that, but it really has been only 9 months that we're seeing like this dressing room go from being dysfunctional to be like highly functional. And that's all down to him. Like the fact that he's like brought these other players in, like Callum Hudson-Odoi was on his way up, not feeling good about his football. And now he's, obviously he brought him in right away and played him at wing back, which probably wasn't his preferred role. But, there was a learning curve there for him as well. And now you're seeing him being featured in his more preferred role on the left. The only guy that I would say at this point in time that is kind of not necessarily at the races right now would probably be, Ziyech and Pulisic, but it's not for lack of effort from Tuchel in terms of like bringing them into the squad and giving them opportunities to flourish within the system, right? So, as far as man management goes, I'm gonna have to say a 9 again, just because the squad harmony is fantastic and his ability to communicate what he wants to do from match to match with the variation of tactics is always at a high level. So his communication to the squad and whatnot is high, and also the application.
I think one of the things we've got to bear in mind, and we have to, I do get it. We are in the bubble right now because he's our manager currently, and we're only seeing good things at the moment. We're sitting top of the league, we've won a Champions League. Everything looks merry and happy. And, maybe if we had this conversation when Conte had just won the league, it would be saying the same thing. He's a 9 out of 10. He's this, he's that. Do you know what I mean? I get that. Get that.
Good point.
This is the one thing I would say is that there is the only one question mark with him is just the longevity and the consistency, and the consistency in doing what he's doing. And I think that's that. Like, I know the MDT's right. Jose Mourinho done it for year after year after year. Tuchel's been managing for years, and he's been at PSG. He was their most successful manager ever at PSG in how he won and what he won back to back titles. I know it's not easy there anyway, but he's done it. Do you know what I mean? I think this guy could be, and I just hope that our board, more than anything, allow him to do what he needs to do now. This not just get rid of him because we're going through a bad patch or a bad moment, or he hasn't done this. Just give the guy the backing, stick with him. And when we're talking about what he offers in terms of man management, which is what we're on at the moment, he's got every player on side. He's made Rudiger, who nearly left the club, now look blooming world class in this role. He's made Christensen, who, in my eyes, was again not really that great, thinking about we need to replace him and whatever else, looking one of the best players again in the world at the moment in form. Jorginho, everyone used to be against what he was about, said he wasn't good enough, no one can get the best out of him. Even when Sarri was there, we were still moaning about him. Now he's the Regista, now he's the Ballon d'Or, proposed Ballon d'Or. Like, he's done so much is what I'm saying. He's man management to elevate the players that he currently has around and give people like Ruben Loftus-Cheek another opportunity, coming back from Fulham, getting into the squad. Many other managers would have just sent him back off again. Not Tuchel. He saw something in him. He threw it, give him the opportunity to show him and us, and himself what he can do. And Ruben's thriving from it because Tuchel's giving him that love. You see him after a game, he cuddles him. He's very touchy. Like, do you know what I mean? He shows, you can feel that he's so one with them. Do you know what I mean? He has no problems with him. He just wants the best for his team, and I think that goes a long way. And in terms of his man management, it's got to be a 9 for me, easily.
Yeah, I agree with that. Gonna have to agree with that. But the only thing, and I guess it's just because we can't really measure his successes completely yet. Obviously, he's reached the holy grail, in a very short period of time, and that's to be commended. But at the same time, you can't necessarily speak on successes when he's only really had the one, right? Even though it's as big as it is. So, yeah, I agree. It's a tough one, but I think that's a incomplete right there, just because I think we need to see what he does after this season. Right now, Champions League is a fantastic achievement, but we need to see more.
Yeah, I agree. 100%.
Yeah. So, in terms of like managing and reaching expectations, we are in the honeymoon period. Yeah. It's so hard because the expectations are to win at Chelsea, and he did that. He took us from what 9th and 10th, got us into the Champions League spots, and then ended up winning it anyways. Got us to the FA Cup final. Unfortunately, we're unable to win that. And right now we're in a period where we're top of the league. The expectation is that we're going to challenge for the title, and he's doing that right now. We are in the title race. I mean, albeit only after 11 games. but we're right there, and you can only judge what you've seen so far. So I could say that he is definitely managing the expectations and reaching, not necessarily exceeding them. He's just basically, meeting them, head on.
Yeah.
And if he continues on this trajectory, like, I happen to think that Chelsea have a good shout for the title, this title this year, and also a good shout at even going far in the Champions League. So
The thing is,
if he
he
can match
loves
that,
Chelsea. He loves Chelsea.
absolutely.
We need to talk to him, and he's like, "You think that?" He's like, "No, I love it here." Like he's got no idea. He's got no plans of looking like I want to go here after. I want to do that. I don't want to be here. Like he must, he's got so much love from the fans, the players. I think the board love him. I do. I think this might be the time where Abramovic and Mourinho and all of them are sitting there thinking to themselves, "This might be the guy. Like maybe we can just be a bit more chilled with him and work with him more. This could be the guy that, continuously elevates us to where we want to be, which is be successful each and every season. Build your own legacy. We haven't had a manager that's built his own legacy, through our clubs. You can say Mourinho did through parts.
Definitely
and parts,
Mourinho is one of them.
That's cool, but I would like to see a bit of longevity, commitment. A manager that dominates like the league for like 2-3 seasons and wins trophies. I want that. I want us to have that. Something we haven't had at Chelsea. So I think he's the perfect manager for it. I really do, and I just think we've got to get behind him. And I listen. The one thing I would say about him, I don't think he's one of these guys. If he wins the league at the end of the season, and we've won the Champions League and the Premier League, which are the two biggest major trophies you can win, I don't think he rests on his laurels. I think he will go out in the summer and he will look to strengthen, and he'll bring different players in, and he will do different things, and he'll go again. And that's the thing with him. He's so petite about what he wants to do and things, and you can tell by the way he is and the way even when you watch him on the sidelines, and he's not one of these managers just to sit there and not say anything. He's always talking to the guy, pointing this, that, should we do that, bring that. He just looks so into it. Do you know what I mean? And I love that. I absolutely love it.
100%. And like, I mean, the way the club hierarchy works right now, I don't think that he's necessarily responsible for players coming in and players leaving. So I think he just takes it on as a challenge. Like, bring it on. Okay, you want me to work with Lukaku? I've never worked with a number 9 before, but here we go. Let's see what we can do. I'm taking on this challenge. You know, and that's the type of mentality you want from a manager, especially a manager. Big shout. Yes, he did also win the Super Cup. That's a big shout. And hopefully the Club World Cup, right? Let's get it. Let's get
I
it.
forgot about that. Yeah, he did win it.
Yeah. Okay, so yeah, it's so I think it's just the notion that he takes on the responsibility and the challenges, and like he's not a kind of guy that like shies away as well. Like when he gets it wrong, he'll be the first person to tell you that he gets it wrong. And when he gets it right, he's very first to just spread the love amongst, his staff and squad. So, that's the kind of manager you want, somebody that could like basically, get behind the team, win you things, and then also go again, like not rest on his laurels and expect, just expect all the accolades to come to you just based on what you've done in the past. He's always looking for the next challenge and always willing to take it on. And, just basically, again, just because of the hierarchy of the club, I think that he's the perfect marriage, because he's going to allow them to, do what they want to do. And he's just going to take on every responsibility, every challenge that they throw at him. And whether or not he succeeds or not is yet to be seen. But as of right now, he's passing flying colors. So I'm going to give him an incomplete. Well, now that I was reminded that he did win the Super Cup as well. I think I could give him a grade on successes. He did lose the FA Cup, but he did deliver 2 trophies so far. And, with every hope that he can win the Club World Cup, I'm going to say 7.5, just because there's still some, the true testing ground is the Premier League and, winning there. So if he can achieve that, sky's the limit for me with him.
Yeah, FIFA Club Winners' Cup. He needs to win that. Make us the best team in the world, man. Not in Europe, the world. You do that, I'll give you 11. No, I'm joking. You know what I mean? But listen, I think he's a 7 out of 10 at the moment in what he's done. And that's not his own. It's nothing. He's not done anything wrong. It's just that he's not been here long enough. Do you know what I mean? To see what he can do. He wins the Premier League for me. He goes up to an 8.5. Yeah, he wins that World Cup club with it as well. He could easily be a 9. That's 4 trophies in 2 seasons for me, and Yeah, it's gonna
Okay,
be interesting. You know, it's gonna be
guys,
interesting.
feel free to put your numbers in the chat as well, man. We've
Yeah.
been waiting for you guys with your input as well. Shabby's questioning my 7.5. Champions League is big, but I still think that like the
You
true
need more.
testing ground is
Yeah.
the Premier League for me.
Javi, you got
You
to
know,
remember we're comparing him to managers that have done it successfully for Chelsea over the upcoming years. You know, and look at Mourinho. You know, look at what we rated him. You can't rate him on the same level as Mourinho yet, just because of what Mourinho's won at Chelsea over a long period of time. So it's the period issue that we have with Thomas Tuchel, and it's not a bad thing. But these lot want 8.5s. They just love him, didn't they? Look at that.
No, it's the honeymoon period. I'm not mad at them. I could definitely endorse an 8.5, maybe not a 10,
We love him
because
as
like I
well.
said, I totally do. And
Yeah,
and this just goes, what we're seeing right now just goes to show you how how likable this guy is, what he's done as a squad for this squad, for this club, for the supporters. He's definitely on the trajectory to being our greatest manager. I think it's just based on now achievements. That's the only thing that's left right now, and a little bit of longevity. You definitely can't be considered the greatest manager if you've only been here for like a year and a half.
Yeah, he could be. He could do it.
I don't know. I think longevity, like consistently doing it at that high level, is going to be the testing ground for me. Like Champions League, if he wins a Champions League and a Premier League, and then bounces and he's like, all right, see you later, I'm going to go coach Real Madrid or something like that. I can't rate him our greatest ever manager. I still think that Jose Mourinho would tip him there, just based on the fact that Jose has the accolades and the longevity.
Yeah, but you're missing saying there. He would have won back-to-back Champions Leagues, which has never been. I can't think it's only Real Madrid have properly done. If they won back-to-back. So winning a back-to-back Champions League is a big thing. So for me, that goes straight up the pecking order. But I get you. I do get. I think he wins he wins the Champions League, the Premier League, and then he goes into next season and he only wins the Premier League. For me, he then becomes.
Oh, that's enough.
Yeah, he's our best.
Yeah, that's enough.
But because it's not even about the FA Cups or whatever, it's about the amount of major trophies the guy's doing. Do you know what I mean? It's just
and in the span of time as well, right? Yeah, no, I agree. It's just like I don't want our greatest ever manager to be a guy that's been here for a year and a half, and then like I mean, it kind of speaks to the hierarchy of the club. True, right? You win a Champions League and a league, and then you're gone. So, but that's basically it in a nutshell, man. If we're gonna basically say who my favorite manager was, I mean, I got the greatest highs from Jose Mourinho. I'm not going to deny that. Like that first spell, that was my greatest highs that I experienced as a Chelsea supporter, just because he was so magnanimous and he was such a figure at the club. But I'm not going to lie, the football I'm seeing right now with Tuchel is making it very hard for me to not include him as my favorite manager right now. The football, the likability, the tactical flexibility, all of that stuff is just, again, we're in the honeymoon period. We're talking about 9 months of work, but I mean, he's not put a foot wrong yet in terms of like what I want to see from a manager. And it's just levels, man. Like he's definitely one of the top 3-4 managers in the world right now. And that's not nowhere near hyperbole. He's come in and revolutionized the squad once again, and has the whole club singing from the same hymn book. Everyone loves him. The squad loves him, and the football speaks for itself. We're top of the league. We've already won the Champions League. So, I mean, it's still Jose for me, but it's we're talking about like fine lines right now, like in terms of where this could go.
Yeah, I think I agree with you in terms of the buzz Jose Mourinho gave us, especially winning the Premier League for the first time in such a long time. That buzz of winning it in 2004 was huge. If we're talking about my most favorite likable manager based on squad that we had, it would be Ancelotti, because I loved that squad that we had with Ancelotti. I thought it was just. We had the Bison, man. Like, do I have to explain what the Bison was before he got injured? This guy was just
my man.
He was just something else, man. We had Ashley Cole in his peaks, John Terry, it was just such a good squad with Ballack and Drogba and Anelka. And Anelka was just, he was saying else as well on his day. But yeah, and then you talk for me, it's them three really. I mean, it's hard to pick, but I mean Mourinho probably still edges it, but Ancelotti's definitely second, and then Tuchel. But if Tuchel continues doing what he's doing, then that could be switched, and another discussion on channel maybe.
No doubt. And on that note, yes, we should wrap it up there, man. But thanks to everyone that joined us in the chat. Shabby, Josh, big up yourself. Andre, we had Mo from the Blue Lounge, MDT dropping science throughout the entire stream. Boogie, all you guys, man. Obviously, Coachella and whatnot. Like, it's a pleasure to have you guys with us. Rebecca, also. We're just going to keep trying to do this, to build it, and continue to try and find interesting topics to talk about. For the most part, we're going to be focusing on the cup games and whatnot, and give some sort of a tactical synopsis of what we saw in the cups. But in weeks like this, where there's no football, and we have an international break, Canada once again, big Canada. We're going to try and bring you guys something a little bit different, where we talk about, just different aspects of the club, maybe another best of, probably look at the best of strikers. Actually, it's impossible to go best of strikers because there's only one, and it's Didier Drogba. So, but something of that sort we might
4
come.
months of no international football, guys. Just remember that, which means it's all going to be Chelsea chat from now on from us. So remember that, Chelsea, Chelsea. Let's go.
But you know what to do, guys, man. Keep the blue flag flying high, and up the Chelsea. Peace.